The reverberations from the news that an addendum had been added to Kyler Murray's contract extension continued to be felt on the first day of Cardinals training camp on Tuesday. It was the first time the media got to talk to Cliff Kingsbury or any of Murray's teammates about the addendum and ask questions about what kind of film studier is Kyler Murray? What kind of student of the game is Murray in regards to this? We've talked to them in the past about that topic, but it has a different light on it now because of this. And generally speaking, all the guys we talked to had Murray's back. Head coach Cliff Kingsbury said he really wasn't surprised that this type of addendum was added to Murray's contract because, as he said, "quote My man's got $250 million." And Cliff Kingsbury has a good point. Kyler Murray signed an extension that'll keep him under contract through 2028. The life of the contract could pay him up to about $230 million, maybe a little more. 160 million of that was guaranteed for injury, and 105 million of that was guaranteed at signing. That is a lot of money to give a player. So it doesn't surprise me that the Cardinals went above and beyond to make sure all the boxes were checked, make sure all the proverbial T's were crossed and the I's were dotted, especially when it comes to something as important as film study. Early in the preseason, there's a lot of anonymous comments made about, Kyler Murray's leadership, his play on the field, his dedication to the game off the field, and then film study was part of that. So this is one way of the Cardinals trying to address that to make sure that Kyler Murray watches more film. Now, what is this addendum that I'm talking about? It is called in Kyler Murray's contract. It was added in after the framework of the deal was made, because basically all NFL contracts are pretty standard, and it is called an independent study addendum. And what it calls for is that Kyler Murray is responsible for studying game material every week of the season on his own for 4 hours a week. So that means he can't watch film with his teammates in a meeting room and count that. That doesn't count. He can't be in a meeting with coaches and count that. Doesn't count. He needs to do something above and beyond what he does in the team facility every week on his own, and he gets credit for this. This is basically you need to do your homework and the teacher will check. Well, if he doesn't live up to the addendum, if he doesn't do the 4 hours of extra film study a week on his own, then he will be, quote, in default of his contract. And that could mean potentially a loss of guaranteed money. There are lots of questions that have come out of this. Namely, does Kyler Murray not watch a lot of game film? The answer is we actually don't know the answer to that. No one has specifically said on or off the record that Kyler Murray doesn't watch a lot of film. He did say in a New York Times interview in 2021, last December, that he doesn't watch as much as other quarterbacks in the league, because cerebrally, he feels he sees a game in a different way that allows him to not watch as much film. He feels like he doesn't need to watch as much film. Take that for what it's worth, but that's coming from him. I think this comes down to people thinking that Kyler Murray needs to watch more. Whether or not that's true it's basically in the eye of the beholder, right? People can look at the last few seasons. He has been injured, but the Cardinals have tailed off at the end of the season. Is that on Kyler Murray? I would say no. I'd say that's more on Cliff Kingsbury, but he is a quarterback. Now he's the official face of the franchise, getting a mega extension, putting him up there numbers-wise with the likes of Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, guys like that. So he's now in that conversation, which means there's more attention, there's more pressure. So let's go back to Tuesday, first day of Cardinals training camp. We asked everyone about this. His Cardinals teammates, like I said, had his back. Tight end Zach Ertz said Kyler Murray knows a playbook better than anyone else on the roster. He said that when he was traded to the Cardinals midseason last year, it was Kyler Murray who went ahead and helped him with the playbook more than anybody else. Safety Buda Baker, who's played with Kyler his whole career, said that no one works harder than Kyler Murray. Buda also brought up a couple of interesting points. He said that guys on the team study in their own ways. That means some guys study on their own personal tablets, whether it's an iPad or the Microsoft Surface, if that's what it's called. And some guys watch film on their own in the facility on the big screens, and some guys watch film at home on their own TVs or own screens, whatever it may be. So, does that all count? We don't know. There's a lot of unknowns revolving this. Another big question is why would this A be in there, and B, who leaked it? Who got this out there? Why is it in there? It's just basically to protect the Cardinals, is what it comes down to. They have a belief to some degree that Kyler Murray can do more in the film room and to study. Not necessarily, it says throughout the addendum, it says material, it doesn't necessarily say film. So Kyler Murray just needs to study more, is what they're saying. We talked about earlier, it protects the franchise. They put in a lot of money, invested a lot of money into this player, and they want to make sure that their investment is safe, is really what it comes down to. Cliff Kingsbury had some interesting things. He said he has never doubted how much film Kyler Murray watches. Never been a concern to him. He has known Kyler Murray since Kyler was 15, not Cliff. And he really has taken a, a personal investment into Kyler Murray's success. He said on the Pat McAfee show back in March that he has basically linked himself to Murray for the better or for the worse of his career. And he felt pressure when Kyler Murray was drafted to get Murray to this point, which means a mega second deal. So he hasn't seen Kyler Murray basically essentially slack off in film study. At least that's what Kingsbury is saying publicly. Kingsbury also said, this is interesting, that he does not track how much film his players watch. Some coaches may want to, some coaches may want to get reports. He doesn't do it. He doesn't do any of that. He says it is up to the player to watch the film. And he's been known as a player's coach, and this is another example of that. He leaves it up to the players to watch the film because, as he pointed out, this is a results-oriented game, football is. So if a player doesn't watch the film, it'll show up on Sundays. And I think if he doesn't watch the film, it'll also show up on Sundays. And I think we all know, as people who cover the game and everyone who watches the game, understands that if you don't show up in some way, shape, or form on Sunday, that will eventually affect your standing with your team and in the league. People who don't watch film or don't study, they get found out very quickly. It's a very transparent league in that way. You can tell very quickly if someone's not studying. So this is to protect the team. This is to make sure Kyler maybe gets a few extra hours of studying in. And another very interesting part of this addendum that I almost forgot, but this is crucial, especially for Kyler Murray, is that there is a clause in the addendum that says the player, Kyler Murray, cannot have the film running on his iPad or the study material on his iPad or tablet running while he's just being distracted by another medium, which is, according to the addendum, the TV, the internet. He can't be surfing the web, the World Wide Web, and he can't be playing video games. To me, that was interesting because Kyler Murray is known, and I've written about it. He is a massive video gamer, right? He has a Twitch channel. He's part of the FaZe clan. This is a big part of his life. And they went out of their way to include that he cannot be playing video games while the tablet's running, which basically means that he would be just clocking minutes and clocking hours while he's playing video games. If that happens and they catch him, then obviously he's in quote default of the addendum of his deal. How they're going to catch him, how they're going to track this, I don't know, but it'll be very interesting to see what other players have to think about this and how this plays out over the course of the season and what ends up happening with this addendum. Does he fulfill his 4 hours a week, or will he end up being in default? We shall see.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.